Dzień dobry. Thank you for having me. I hope you all have your name tags, you know each other. I hope you're all happy that they gave us 3D printed safe icons. Because I don't know what that thing is any longer. This is kind of weird. But that's interesting that you come with these things. I want to talk to you about things today, and there will be homework, strangely enough, because I've got a captive audience here. I've got people who are working on .NET, which means you work on Windows machines and with people who use Windows, which is pretty good because normally I speak at conferences with web developers that like the open web and like open source, and that's why they use MacBooks, which are totally open source. And I want to talk to people who actually have to build things that people use every day, rather than like, oh look, I redesigned my blog and now it's in 3D with music and that's amazing and you should look at me because that's great. So you work with day-to-day businesses who actually have websites and web products that need upgrading badly. So that's what I wanted to talk to you today about innovating the other web, not the cool web. I'm Chris Hyman, I'm Code Poet on Twitter. And I've been advocating HTML5 since its inception, more or less. I worked at Mozilla until a few months ago, and I worked on Firefox OS, the operating system that's built on HTML5 for mobile devices. I've worked with lots of documentation on HTML5, and it was exciting to me because HTML5 brought us from like a document web to an application web. All of a sudden, we had functionality that wasn't possible before. We had to use things like Flash and Silverlight, and then HTML5 gave us all these things natively. But the problem is that when you look at the press, at the tech press, and the investors and everybody, the mobile revolution was the main thing. Everybody said like everybody's on a mobile phone all the time, and we told each other these wonderful lies like, oh, I don't never have to use a desktop any longer. I will do everything on my mobile phone. Because you're always connected, right? And there's no trains or like, it's lots of fun to type lots of text with your fingers on a little device. And it gets even better now because we're running out of things that are cool. We're now going to like Internet of Things, and we have like wearable watches, and we've got glasses and all these bits and bobs that are just really expensive and not really finished. So it's obviously great for the main market. And I always love it when like, oh, it's so cool to talk to your watch. And you're like, yeah, especially when you're with 300 people in the same room all talking to their watch. That's a really good use case. I'm really looking forward to that. A lot of good interfaces need empathy. You know, things need to be, you pay money for online games because it's a furry little animal telling you, oh, I'm unhappy if you don't go to the next stage. You don't say like, please pay money to the next stage. So it's going to be interesting with the Internet of Things. When you're looking at online and you're looking for jeans, for example, and then your jeans start tweeting you like, what are you doing? Why are you looking at other jeans? What's going on? Do I have to bribe things in my house not to talk about what I did to them? This is what the future is going to hold. And with the mobile revolution, with the whole thing, became the whole thing about apps. It was all about apps. Apps, build apps, and you're going to be successful. Like this 14-year-old kid in the Silicon Valley who can't read and write and only has one arm made a $1 million app in 2 days by using this and that framework, are all the headlines that we had. And apps are a great format for mobile devices and for tablets and all the kind of things. But to me, it always felt like a bit of a step back. I remember when I downloaded shareware games or shareware tools and used them and then discarded them. And then the web came around, and apps, to me, a step back to making software consumable. You cannot sell a second version of a website, but you can sell a new version of an app. So it becomes this like little consumable thing. Well-written apps are great for end users though. So they do one thing and one thing well. That is what an app should do. Like if it shows me the train times, I should get the train time, I should have a button, where's the next train, where is it going, how much does it cost, can I buy a ticket? It shouldn't tell me there's bands playing around it. It shouldn't tell me like the advertising around it. Apps are there for use. They use things, not look things. They don't need a connection all the time. That's the whole thing, why I download an app. Why would I download 50 meg when I then have to be online all the time as well? And go to a newsstand and get an update for my PlayStation card and don't understand the poor guy behind the counter and he's like, yeah. But a lot of apps don't do that. A lot of apps, you open them and then it says spinner. And you're like, why are you an app? You might as well be a website. If you do an app, do make the thing work offline. Otherwise, you don't have an app. And users are offline all the time because wireless gets overloaded and your SIM card runs out of data, all kinds of things. They have a minimalistic interface fit for the purpose and device. Big buttons, because we got fat fingers. It's not like when you're on a drop-down menu with 15 levels on your desktop machine, and you're like, this is amazing, like 5 pixels to the left, and you lost everything. You just went for the last 5 seconds. I just started using a Surface. Never do these menus to me. I will come hurt you. They're easy to customize to my needs. That's another thing that apps have different from websites. Most websites are not customizable, and when they were customizable, people didn't use them. But with apps, people do change them. They actually change background colors, they make them show them only the newest things. People like interacting with apps because they put more in. An app, you have to go to an app store, you have to enter your credit card detail, give them your firstborn son, give them all the information about where you live and what kind of food you like, and then you can start downloading the app. That means you're already invested in the app, so you're interacting with it differently to a website. All of that went out the window pretty quickly though, because when apps became a thing, people realized that apps mainly mean one thing for companies, and that is control. You can control the interface. I am an advocate of the web because I love the web. I don't care if you use an old desktop machine, if you're on a mobile device, if you're on a tablet, if you're on a fridge, if you're on your phone, if you're on your dog, or whatever is internet connected these days. You can totally use the internet. I always loved that as a web developer, that I have no control over what's going on there. But for companies, this is horrible. The amount of people that like, can I stop people from leaving my website? No. Like, how can I stop people from downloading the images that I have? Put them on a floppy disk, leave them in your desk. That's the only way I can stop people from downloading your images, because they can take screenshots. These kind of things. Control is what people wanted with applications, and that is going mental nowadays. That's going ridiculously bad. LinkedIn is a great example that now has a browser in LinkedIn itself. So if I click a link to an external website in a LinkedIn message, it opens in a little browser inside the LinkedIn application rather than my browser, which is great end user service if your end users are people who want to build phishing sites. Because it doesn't have a URL bar, it only has a few buttons there. I don't know if this site is legit or not. It doesn't give me a malware pop-up. It's just a very bad little web view. And it's because the company doesn't want people to leave their app. Apps are used a lot to lock people into a service. Please stay inside LinkedIn, whatever you do, because we want to have those eyeballs, we want to show you ads, we want you to click, we want to give your CV to random people that give you job offers that you don't need, these kind of things. This is in Krakow actually, where all the people do their undying love and they're putting a lock on the bridge. But some people want choice and prefer not to be logged in, and it's the same with applications. It's like, I don't want to surf in your app. I want to surf in my browser, and I want to go to your app to do one thing and one thing well, and then leave your app. And you should not try to catch people and keep them in there and put more and more functionality in there to keep people addicted to your application. Also, we force feed application to people. Like we had every browser since Firefox came out has a pop-up blocker, because pop-ups are terrible. What do we do now? We let people download a website, connect to the website, get all the information, and then we give them an overlay, please download the app instead. The information is already in my computer, it's already on the screen, but I can't reach it because it tells me to download the app instead, because obviously that's a better solution for me. Of course, developer tools, right-click, get rid of the overlay, and you can use the website, or use the print version, or use a proxy like Google Translate to actually show the app, then it doesn't give it a pop-up. But you shouldn't have to hack websites that way. The competition in apps is brutal, and people get bored of apps. There was a survey last July that 65% of people didn't download a single app in that month. And that's understandable, because we have too many apps already on our devices that keep telling us to do things to them. All notification messages like, oh, you haven't played with that game for 5 minutes. What do? You have a real life. Don't do that. Go back to our app instead. Or like, people looked at your LinkedIn profile. Doesn't say me anything else, just people looked at it, like what, with disgust, with interest? I don't know, tell me, what did they look at? And when you look at the apps that people are using, Facebook, YouTube, Google Play, and Google Search are the biggest that people are using. The biggest app provider on mobile devices is Google. That's the biggest app maker of apps that people use. Which brings me back to the thing about control. Because the issue that people have is that they think they can control their end users by having an app. But in essence, you're under the control of the operating system provider as well. Android is free-ish, of course. It's like a tada source, oh, it's done, please fix it for us now. And it's open and it's wonderful. iOS is not open at all. As a developer, you always have to wait for the operating system provider to give you the next functionality to do things with. And they can take that functionality away if they wanted to. Like, oh, you want to do micropayments in your app? We don't allow that anymore. Your app is out of the market. And as a developer, I'm like, really? We have the web for that. I was allowed to do whatever I want on the web and put whatever I think is out. And that is innovation. That allows me to build things that nobody else has built before, rather than cookie cutter putting apps together. The most repeated truth about apps is if you want great apps, you need to go native. You need to use the native platforms, iOS, Swift, Java in Android, and HTML5 is just not good enough. And to me, I always compared this with like making these kind of race cars. Yes, they're specialists, they're done for one purpose only, but going shopping with them and trying to park them in the middle of Wrocław is not possible. So if you use the tool built for the job, yes, you should get a better result, otherwise the tool is terrible. But the web is better than that, it's different to that. Native apps make you choose. You have to say, I do Android, I do iOS. Or I have to hire an Android developer, an iOS developer, a Windows Phone developer, a BlackBerry developer. You cannot just build one thing and render it on all of those. It's possible with things like PhoneGap and these kind of things, but if you really want to go native, you have to make a choice. And you know what? I don't want to make choices in software and hardware, because these things change all the time. Remember when like the PlayStation was cool, like the first one? And nowadays you can't even sell it on eBay anymore. Closed systems, whenever the software is hardwired into the hardware, it's something that is so fleeting, I don't want to support that. I want to have upgradable things. And nowadays you can't even do that with memory anymore. I think there needs to be a shift in control. It needs to go back to the developer and not to the operating system providers and not to the people who run the app stores. You should be allowed to publish things that make sense. Of course, security might be an issue, but in essence, we had that already. The web was there. You were allowed to build things. For that, we need a few more options. We need functionality. We need different platforms that support and embrace the open web rather than go more and more into closed environments. And for that, we need functionality. And the functionality is what is happening in the standards bodies, in the What Working Group, in the W3C, to give us the functionality of native applications on the open web right now. Because let's face it, we're not good at delivering great mobile experiences right now. We're not good at that. We just like assume that it's a phone and then you give us something. This is the login screen for the free wireless at an airport I was in on my Nexus device. This is impossible to use because it didn't detect my screen the right way, and there's a PC version that I can go to as well that didn't work without the wireless. It was really bizarre. And there's much more to our jobs than device use cases of mobile devices. The story that like you can do everything with your smartphone, I don't believe that any longer. Because sooner or later, I want to have a keyboard. I want to type lots of stuff in. I want to have a mouse. I want to do things that people have been doing for years and years and years, where the ergonomic factor makes total sense. Because just like this all the time is really not good. Especially when the phones get like 6 inches, you can't even move with your thumb from the bottom to the top any longer, unless you have like monkey hands or something. And there's more to our jobs than mobile device use cases. And a lot of what we have right now hurts me as a web developer. When I tell people that I'm a passionate web developer, then people see websites like this, which is the, if you want to travel to the US, you have to fill that out. It's the voucher for getting into the US. And this is a website in 2015 that looks like a template from front page 1997. And that costs millions of dollars because it's a government website, so I'm quite sure there's a SharePoint behind that and all kind of stuff going on. But it's super ugly. Or the other day I had a rental car and it asked me to upgrade to an undefined for not a number nor per day. This stuff shouldn't happen. We should be better than this. But it happens every single day because people just render things out and like, oh, it is a framework, it will do it right. Error case? Nah, no, errors never happen. Just success cases. Never write an error case that's for losers. And as a user, it annoys me as well. Like, okay, click OK to OK. Okay. And it's so depressing when you see users in user testing, when you're behind the screen and you see people in the room and they click on something and there's a database error and then they say, oh, I must have done something wrong. There's no way you can do something wrong to cause a database error unless there's a SQL injection in the web server. That's a different problem. But people are still afraid of computers. As much as we don't think they are, people still think these are magical boxes and we're all wizards. Because we know how to talk to these boxes. It's like people that know how to train dogs. You know, it's with us, it's with computers. And strangely enough, every time somebody has a misbehaving computer, as soon as I sit next to them, the computer doesn't misbehave anymore. They know when we're there. They know we can do things to them. The web made us move away from computers telling us what is possible and what isn't. Like, sorry, okay is not an acceptable word. Okay. Last time I checked, Skynet hasn't happened yet. We're still in control over the computers rather than computers over us. So if I get told as a developer that I can't apply my knowledge because an operating system doesn't allow me to do that, although older operating systems or the web already allow me to do this, this is a step back in time. Don't do that to me. I want to be creative. I want to do cool things. The power of web technology lies in its versatility. This is a Volkswagen Kübelwagen, as it's called. It's a boat and a car. That's what web development is about. Like, you can drive anywhere. This thing is not pretty, but actually it allows you to go anywhere without having to change your vehicle. You just have one vehicle that does the thing. And you can make that look totally pretty. This is not the same thing that does the same job, but looks much cooler. I mean, how cool is that guy? And you can make it as fancy as you want on the web, because we got the functionality, and this is what HTML5 and other new standards were about. They gave us new functionality on the web that we didn't have before. They gave us things like multimedia, playback and recording. Making a recording of the camera in HTML right now, turning it into a GIF live in my browser is totally possible. Talking to people over audio, having a text editor where several people can edit at the same time, works. These things are actually in the browsers nowadays. Offline functionality. Okay, app cache is not the best solution, service worker will replace that, but it works. IndexedDB, WebSQL, all the things where I can put things on my user's computer so they don't have to download it from the web. Please do that. People have lots of hard drives. There's lots of space there, and if not, they just delete an episode of Games of Thrones or something and make some space. But you have control over that cache. It's not like the cache in the browser where you hope things get cached. You know what has been cached and what hasn't. And that's a very, very powerful thing. Which is local file storage, multi-device input, like touch input, keyboard input. Somebody used the Doppler effect on the microphone to detect movement the other day. This is really cool. Or you get a leap motion and these kind of things. And this is just going to get more and more. We're not going to have only keyboards and mice. People are going to use detection of their faces, detection of gestures. All this stuff is coming. Client-side file and graphics manipulation. With Canvas, you can actually crop images, change images, convert images before you upload them to the server. You can use JS-zip if somebody re-engineered the zip algorithm in JavaScript. So you can zip things on the browser before you upload them. So instead of having like 50 Word documents that people dragged into the browser and uploading them one by one and your life fading away and you wanting to kill yourself, just basically let them put them in there, make one zip, upload that one zip in the background, and it's much, much smaller as well. These kind of things are possible. Adaptive interfaces, like you clicked 15 times on that thing, why don't I give you a button for that? Like media queries giving you the different layouts for different screen sizes and more and less content is totally possible, but we still just try to force feed all the content onto a small screen. That doesn't make any sense to me. And they're always up to date. That's what I like about the web. Like, I don't have to download the new app and reinstall it and uninstall the other one. It's just up to date because it's the web. And I can check if it has been cached to the new version. I can prompt people to get the new version or not. It doesn't matter. Except, of course, there's old browsers out there that don't support any of that stuff. Caniuse.com is a great website where you can type in anything that is in the new functionality, and then you get like which browser supports it on which platform or which browser doesn't. And there's Android, iOS Safari, IE, Firefox, Opera, Chrome, and so on and so forth. A lot of that has to do with outdated platforms. People not upgrading their operating system and operating systems having a hardwired browser into them. Google just announced, for example, that ICS, ice cream sandwich-based phones don't get a new browser any longer. They don't get security updates any longer. Windows XP has been given up by Microsoft. Internet Explorer 8 is on the way out. All of these computers that don't get a new browser because the thing that came with the operating system is good enough, that's a problem. And that's not only a problem because of features that I don't have, it's a problem with security. Because all these old browsers have massive security holes, and the bad guys of the internet use that. This was in the tech press in England. Every hacker, I mean, you test for SQL injection, for XSS, for CSRF, for click tracking. Do you check for crowbar? Because that's what most hackers use. This is what hackers look like. But it is a real issue that outdated browsers are out there and don't get upgraded because it's too convenient to not do it. Or you build things 20 years ago or 10 years ago that need that old browser. And that's the problem. So far, the number one reason when I talk to web developers why they're not embracing HTML5, we have to support Internet Explorer. And that annoys me. Because it's a lame excuse, kind of. You know, because we have to support it. You're like, do you test in all the old Internet Explorers? No, I don't have time for that. Then you don't support it. You just say that you support it. It's an excuse not to use new technologies. And that became a running gag, like how to tell if HTML from HTML5, try it on Internet Explorer, did it work? No, then it's HTML5. And Internet Explorer was not seen as a browser that innovates. It was Chrome and Firefox are fighting amongst it, and Internet Explorer is just sitting in the background eating glue and being happy with the little helmet that it has. Like it's like the browser that people have and don't want. And it annoyed me because it's cheap, so I did something about it. I joined Microsoft. Because I want to be there when the browser gets killed. And I want to do my best job to make that thing go away and become something better, something that was not meant to be before that. And as did the company that caused that mess. This is what we have right now. Internet Explorer 11 and going back to IE 5.5 and so on and so forth. And the new thing is Project Spartan, and I'm part of that. That is the new browser engine that comes in Windows 10. It's interoperability with all the other standards compliant browsers. It has it's the default engine of Windows 10, and it actually is for modern HTML websites. So the amount of people that have Chrome and Firefox installed and Internet Explorer because they need Internet Explorer for their booking systems or for their timekeeping systems or Outlook Online or whatever, that has to go away, and it will go away. You can still use any browser that you want. I don't want you to use Internet Explorer. I'm using a Mac for starters. But I want to make sure that people don't have to do an extra browser because the Internet Explorer doesn't do the thing right. And this is where I need you. So let me know here's what you can do with this, because you all work with companies that have Windows machines. There is a great blog post that talks about the enterprise Internet Explorer thing. Make it easier for enterprise customers to upgrade to Internet Explorer 11 and Windows 10. There's tools in there that tell you what if you have a website that needs Internet Explorer 8, what can you do to make that ready for Windows 10? What can you do to help your admins to set the right mode? Because what Windows 10 will have is the two modes still in there. We cannot, as Microsoft, or Microsoft as a company, cannot just say, oh, now everybody is HTML5 compliant and all your old things are now broken. Tough luck. That's not going to happen. But we have a change that, for example, when you're on the intranet, it gives you the old rendering engine. When you're on the internet, it gives you the new one. As an admin, you can whitelist sites that should be rendered in the old mode, and new sites that you're going to build are going to be web compliant, so they work with all the other browsers. So there's great tools for you to keep the things that you have right now and to upgrade the things that you want to build to these cool new features that you can actually put in them to make the websites much better for our end users. If all fails, talk about money. There's a Forrester research paper that explains to people why it saves them a lot of money in the long run to embrace Internet Explorer 11 and not support the old browser and the old systems any longer, but upgrade those systems. There's money in that, strangely enough. Get inside and give feedback. Inside at windows.com is where you can download Windows 10 right now, and you can upgrade your browser and you can test the new engine that's coming for you. Request features. If you have something that you love in Chrome, that you love in Firefox, that you love in Opera or in Safari, and you want Internet Explorer to have it, there's a user voice, wpdev, uservoice.com. write it in there and the IE team will answer you. This is part of my job, to make those people, find them in the office, hit them on the head and tell them answer those emails. Because we were bad at that at the beginning, and that's why I joined as well. We were always bad, like I was on panels where I was the Firefox guy, and there was the Google guy, and there was one Microsoft guy who didn't want to be there because everybody just made fun of Internet Explorer, and there was an Apple on the table because nobody from there showed up. Check back frequently and bet on interoperability. The status.modern IE shows you what Internet Explorer can now do with that Edge engine, the new rendering engine. And it also shows you the things that you can use because they're also supported by Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. So don't build things for one browser. Never ever again. That's why we have this mess. People build things because Internet Explorer 6 was cool, long time ago. And we still have these websites. And nowadays we have websites where it's only working on Chrome. And I'm like, okay, I'm only going somewhere else, because I don't want to download a browser. If you think you can control people on the internet, go away from the internet, do other things. The end user is in control. And that's something you have to keep thinking. Once we have the tools, it's important to use them wisely, because we get these new features. These are all cool, amazing features. You can do great stuff with them, and it's very tempting to use them all in one product, you know? And that leads to website obesity. The average website nowadays is 2 megabyte big with 199 HTTP requests. I used to work in Yahoo on the performance team, and then I worked with the Google performance team. And for about 8 years, we told people that every HTTP request is a bad thing. Because the computer has to go out, has to say, like, I've got this number, this URL thing, which number does that DNS server, are you there, hello? Okay, yeah, do you have that thing, can I download it, can I understand it, yeah, okay. So the less HTTP requests, the better. And 199 requests per website is just ridiculous. What did you do there? Most of the time it's people using 5 frameworks at the same time and having like 50 JavaScript includes in the bottom. Or like, yeah, I have all the themes of Bootstrap in it because I only need one, but that's okay. And that's where it gets interesting when you see these really, really bad websites. When Internet Explorer 6 had the issue that it only loaded 64 style sheets, and then it stopped loading the style sheets because there's a memory problem or something, and I'm like, how did we find that out? Like, who has 64 style sheets in one page? Joomla users. Because every Joomla module had its own style sheet. So if you had 64 modules on there, you had this massive list of CSS in there. I used to build a website called visitbritain.com, a tourist portal of England. 300 lines of CSS for 120,000 pages in 37 languages and 5 layouts. And then I left the company, and half a year maintenance later, 7,600 lines of CSS with totally random stuff in it, because people don't understand CSS, they just put more things on it important at the end of it. And we're better than that. We got the tools for that, we got the great things for that. And especially when it comes to responsive web design, when people say like, oh look, it looks different on a mobile phone and on a desktop, a lot of people forget that it doesn't mean that you give everything and you load it and only show the bits and bobs, but you should also load them on demand when the device can actually show them. LG had this great website that was 54 meg of data for a website. I tried to look at it, it's still loading at home. And we have tools for that, and it's tempting to go overboard. Like, it's cool to do a background change, subtle change is beautiful, and then people start to hijack that scrolling all the time and do things when I scroll the page, and that drives me crazy. Because this is basically somebody trying out PowerPoint for the first time and trying to make that into a website, it seems. This thing is amazing. I was just scrolling through that yesterday and I'm like, what are you doing there? This is just, wow. Like, look, it flashes in and out because it's got nothing to say. And it's tempting to do that. It's tempting to, when we get new toys, we do them. I mean, like every computer I had, the hard drive, like 250 gig, I will never fill that up. 3 weeks later, I got 5 gig left. What did I do? Like, we just put more and more things into it. So make sure that when you use this new functionality, you use it wisely. You do use it for the user's benefit, not for your own benefit. And it's tempting to blindly trust frameworks. Like, oh, if you use Angular, it will be interfacey and it will be responsive and everything. No, you should use .NET, then it works in all the browsers. I would have put some logo there of frameworks that people are using, but that changes every 2 minutes right now. So it should be an animation that live loads any new logos that people think like, no, it's Polymer this week. No, you should use React. Actually, no, it's not React anymore. Angular 2 is coming because they got TypeScript, so you can use that. And I'm just like, I don't have time for this. Just give me something that works and give me something that I can rely on in 5 weeks as well. Not like, oh, that's outdated, don't use that anymore. I love all these task runners when it started with grunt and then came gulp. And I'm like, what's next? Like fart, burp? Like, you know, like broccoli and these kind of things. We got so excited about making a logo and putting something on GitHub and calling it a product. It just scares me because this stuff is not maintained. It means more to release open source than to just throw it on GitHub and hope people will maintain it for you. You invest in your own product. Speed up your products. If you don't want to go to Spartan Engine, if you don't care about Windows 10, if you don't care about end users, that's fine, but at least speed up your websites. Websites that are slow are giving the web a bad name, and that's why people go to native applications, and they're not even better, they're just more lock-in if you think about it. Webpagetest.org looks absolutely atrocious. I really want to change that logo every single time I see this website. But the functionality of that thing is nuts. What you can do is you can type in a URL, and then you can select a test location of a server that would load that website from that location. You can also select the speed and the browser that should load this website. So you can look at your website on a Nexus 4 device in America or on an iPhone in Bangladesh or whatever. Not really Bangladesh. You can speed the connection. You can say, I want to see it on a 56K connection. I want to see it on a cable connection. I want to see it on something slower than I have. And then you get a massive report about what was loading when, what is going wrong with your website, how can you speed it up, and up in the header you got these A to F things. So all the F's are bad, click on them and you get information why they are bad and a link to how you can fix these problems. This is ridiculously cool. I mean, if when I started as a web developer, I would have had something like that. I'm like, this is amazing, it's free. It's like you can just go there and do the thing. I'm quite sure there's a one you can buy that you can use behind a firewall or something like that as well. But it's just for testing things, it's pretty amazing. And it even creates a video of your website that shows you how it renders. Because a lot of people make that mistake of thinking people love looking at loading bars. We don't. It's really the worst excuse you can do for an interface. It basically says like, hey, we're waiting, your call is important to us, please don't hang up. Like, if you want to do something loading, show people what the interface is going to be like as a grayed out version and fill it in one by one when it starts loading in. That way people have the experience that they're with you waiting rather than waiting for you. There's a great new concept of that, and Chrome is doing that right now actually as a meta tag as well, that you can have a header that always has been preloaded that doesn't have to get loaded again. So the interface becomes, rather than going from website to website, it becomes like website modules to more modules and these kind of things. Because on desktop we do the same thing. We never have a white screen in between and wait for seconds and then something else comes. On the web we still do that, and that's not a beautiful experience. Apps haven't and won't replace the other web. The web that we have to use, that Windows users have to use every single day, like our room booking systems, our day off systems. Like people who like Excel, these kind of people, they're not going to use an app because the app is not going to replace them. But we can learn from the simplicity of apps. Apps do things well because they're simple. Websites are not any longer, because we have that concept of like getting something new and putting everything into it. The amount of people that use like certain navigations because they're cool or they came with the framework rather than they're really necessary for the product is atrocious. It's like, don't give users things they don't need because you just think they're cool. And that was the great thing about the mobile revolution. All of a sudden we had a small screen and we didn't have much space to run by. And I mean, if you don't have AdBlock installed, the web is not fun at the moment. There's just so many things that are just covering everything up, and there's that much content and that much ads around it, and a big hero image that I really didn't need, I just wanted to read something. The web is obese, and we have to do something better than that, and we have the tools with HTML5 to do it. Well-written products are great for end users. Think about what apps do well and put that in your products. This could be a SharePoint application, this could be anything. Think about that they do one thing well. I just try to switch from Keynote back to PowerPoint, and I write my slides normally in HTML, but that's dangerous as an HTML developer because you code more in your slides than you actually write your slides. It's like, I can do this, look, I can rotate it. But the amount of stuff that you get in like the toolbar in PowerPoint, I'm like, I'm confused. Don't give me that many things. People think that putting more things into an interface gives people choice, but actually it means you force them into decisions. Because subconsciously we see all that, we want to take everything in, and we feel overwhelmed. Give people less and give people more when they need it and only when they need it. And that's something that every app should do, every product on the web should do. Go offline. Put as many things as you can on people's computers. One big problem we have in web design right now is web fonts. Web fonts are beautiful. We finally have proper typography on the web. We don't just have to give them like Arial or Times New Roman. These are the two choices you had. Nowadays we can give you any font that you want. I always loved it back in the days when we didn't have web fonts and companies asked me, can I use my company font on our computer, on our website? And I was like, there was no way of doing it back then. I mean, Internet Explorer 5 had already some web font thing going, but cross-browser it wasn't possible. But I'm the kind of person, I'm like, okay, yeah, we can do that. Because I knew that the company computers all have that font installed, so I just used it as the first font in my CSS. So inside the company, it always looked perfect and it had the right font. Outside the company, they never checked back then. Because it was people that just do 9 to 5, they just surf in the office. But nowadays we have like, we shave off 20 milliseconds of our JavaScript and we concatenate our CSS and use SAS to do pre-processing to have as few CSS lines as possible. And then we use 15 fonts in the website, but all of them with 6 meg each. Because it's beautiful. And fonts have a problem that like a lot of websites, especially on mobile, I load the thing, it's white, boom, then the text comes in. So at least have a fallback font first before you load the rest of the fonts. It's a very, very important thing to do. If you use Google Fonts, you can also just define the range of characters that you need. You don't need to load the whole font face. That's sometimes a great way to save some time as well. And store them in local storage. It's really that easy. Local storage, window.local storage, key, value. And it will be on your user's computer. It's like cookies on steroids. It's amazing. It's a wonderful thing to do. And when you really want to have a database rather than just a key value pair, IndexedDB, WebSQL, there's a few libraries that abstract upon those, like local forage is one of them, so you have one syntax for all the different ways to store things on people's computers. I like that. I like when I'm offline and I load a website and the thing works. And it's possible. And you don't even have to advertise that to the people. Just give people these magical moments where things work without them having to do something. That's amazing. That's what I love having, you know? Not like please go into the settings and change all these things to make it do the thing that you want in the first place. Minimalistic interface, fit for the purpose and device. Don't give me drop downs on a mobile phone that are like this big. Don't give me big buttons like that on a desktop. That's the other problem. When people start with a mobile first website, then on a 1400 resolution I've got a button this big and I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. This is not what I really think the web should be like. And they're easy to customize to my needs. So if I'm on a device, battery API is coming into browsers right now and it says like, hey, you only got 5% of your battery left. How about I turn off the animations for you? And the website stays responsive. And it's not as pretty any longer, but it doesn't suck my battery empty and I have time to finish that email. That kind of things, think about them. We have the functionality to do that. So let's go and build products that are great. Like there's the minimum viable product and then there's the minimum lovable products. And I think we should build products that people love using, not the ones that they have to use because they come in the office in the morning and they open the gray box with Windows 95 and actually do something with there. We got the functionality and we got the new functionality in even Windows to do all these cool things, and we should now change it because far too many times we sacrifice the end user's experience for developer convenience. Because we just use the framework, oh, that's a appropriate interface that is great, let's use that one. And the end user's experience should always trump everything else. We are not working for ourselves. We are working for the people that are using our products every single day. If we can make them more productive, if we can make them have a better time using our products, then we've done our job, because they pay money for using our products. They pay money to our companies that pay us wages. So when something only works well on your computer in the newest version on a MacBook with 8 cores and massive graphics, and all the end users are waiting 5 minutes for their website to load, you failed. You did not deliver to the people that actually are mattering here. And we get far too excited about impressing each other as developers and using things that look great without even testing it for end users. So let's go out there and build great products, and please stay up to date and help me get rid of these old interfaces and these old browsers that hold us back and make the web insecure and ugly. And that's all I had, so dziękuję.